but also the fear of the mindset of no one else can do it but me. Believe it or not, other people can do it, and you can focus on the things that you do better. Yeah.
To that point, so one of the things that it's been running, it's like a repeat for the last few days. You got to let grow to grow. It's like that's the mantra that I'm playing over and over in my mind. You got to let go to grow. Yeah. Which is what that is. I have not let anybody in my inbox yet.
Well, the other aspect was also the internal financial stuff. I mean, the beauty of having purely coincidence, my former payroll person, who literally knew everything anyway about the inside, coming in and now sort of liaisoning with the payroll company, but giving her a more new inside look into the finances, which I was always like, there's no way. It's okay. Like, let grow to grow. And that's one of those methods too, where it's like, all right, what are you seeing in there? Work with the bookkeeper, like help me, help us, help the firm, basically.
Welcome to the Founding Partner Podcast. Join your host, Jonathan Hawkins, as we explore the fascinating stories of successful law firm founders. We'll uncover their beginnings, triumph over challenges, and practice growth. Whether you aspire to launch your own firm, have an entrepreneurial spirit, or are just curious about the legal business, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Founding Partner Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Hawkins. This is a podcast where I get to interview founding attorneys, hear about their journeys and lessons they learned along the way, and hopefully you, the listener, gets to learn along with me. And so this episode is a little different. This is the first time I've ever recorded one of these in person, so excited about that. It'll be a different dynamic. And today I'm interviewing a friend of mine I've known for a good number of years now, family law attorney here in Atlanta named Kevin Rubin. His firm is Rubin Family Law. And Kevin, thanks for joining me, man.
Jonathan, I'm honored to be your first in-person guest for the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I know about you and know what you're doing and what you've been doing. Why don't you sort of introduce yourself, tell us about your firm, how many folks you have, that kind of thing.
All right, so I'm the founding partner of Rubin Family Law. Founded the firm back in March of 22. I've been practicing for 16 or 17 years. Graduated from Emory Law School, went straight into family law. It's what I've wanted to do and been doing ever since then. We're based in the Cumberland area of Atlanta by the Braves Stadium. Currently we've got 5 attorneys, including myself, 4 paralegals, and a firm administrator. And I've got to say, since starting the firm, going out on my own, which I know we'll talk about, it's been exciting to sort of see us grow. Now, granted, there's been bumps along the road. I'm sure every founding partner or partner has had that, but sort of how you pick up the slack, move on, and learn from your mistakes, and hopefully keep driving forward and growing.
Well, it's been fun. I'll tell you, from my perspective, watching your firm grow. I mean, when you started, we'll get into this, but, you were not super excited, I'll say, back in the day when you started, and maybe not sure exactly where it was going to go, but, man, you've really grown it pretty well, and I like that. So first thing is, so you're not from around here, are you, man? You're from Philly, aren't you?
My accent give you away. Yes, I was born and raised in Philly and lived there up until college. I actually lived in D.C. for about 5 years, moved back home, met my wife, lived in New York for a little bit, and then her job brought us down here, and that's where I finished law school.
Okay, so I was wondering, what brought you to Atlanta? So you had started law school somewhere else, and you finished at Emory?
I had 1 year in New York City, and then my wife got a job down here, and weather, can't beat it. I didn't want to shovel any more snow, and so we moved down here, and 3 kids later, and her parents moved down. We're not moving anywhere else.
All right, so I got to know, Phillies or Braves?
Baseball-wise, everyone always gives me something for this. I'm a Braves fan because my youngest is big into baseball. We do travel baseball, so him and his friends, and I'm about a quarter mile from the Braves Stadium and a bunch of season ticket groups, so I'm a Braves fan. That being said, they're not in it like this year.
Bad year.
But I will say, in terms of my other teams, I am loyal Eagles fan all the way. I used to have tickets growing up. Not that we have a hockey team. Love the Flyers. I used to take my brothers all the time, and of course Sixers. I mean, practice, practice, practice. Allen Iverson. So, other than the Braves, I'm still loyal.
Well, I'm surprised you're not a Phillies fan. I mean, because they're pretty die-hard.
Yeah,
They're
they're
die-hard.
more Eagles, and then honestly, growing up, we were Flyers. I mean, I probably was going to a couple games a week because I was driving, and I got the pleasure of taking one of my brothers each time with me. So I had 3 younger brothers, so I got to go to every single game I wanted to.
Nice.
And we just loved ice hockey. Yeah.
Nice. Well, cool. So let's get back to the firm. So you said you started out in family law. You said, is that always what you wanted to do? Some folks, talk to a lot of people in family law, they may start out in sort of a different area and they sort of end up in family law. You've been in family law the whole time. And so again, is that sort of by design, by accident? Was it just your first job?
I'll say, 90% accident, 10% design after getting into it. So I guess after my first year of law school, I got a internship with a judge down in Atlantic City doing family law. My wife and I were in transition. We were, about to transfer down to Georgia. We just got married. She was going to start work, so we lived down the Jersey Shore. And I was lucky enough to find an internship, and it was so interesting. And I don't know why, my dad's a lawyer too, so he's a personal injury lawyer, and he's always like, I don't know why you're doing domestic. I'm like, because I like it. I like the people aspect of it. I like helping people. And so it was, I'd say 90% accident, but once I got into it, I mean, I love it. I really like helping people. I like making a difference in the world. And I think it's a few areas where you can have the personal touch like that. So while it was an accident, I've dove headfirst in and still am swimming in the stream.
So I know you can't talk about specific cases or clients for sure, but I imagine you see some crazy stuff in this practice area.
Yeah, just when I think you can't see something, I've seen it all. It's like the internet, it doesn't end. Yeah, something else pops up, and new things happen all the time, or new financial gimmicks, or I wouldn't say gimmicks, but tax code issues, things like that. Everyone's always looking for something. It's just interesting. Because it's really, we just follow people.
The text messages you've seen, I'm sure.
Everything you text can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Yeah, be careful out there, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you got your own firm now, but before that, you had another firm. But even before that, you worked at a couple, maybe 2-3 firms. So take me through the progression. So you got a job after Emory.
Yeah, when I was my third year, actually, I started working at a firm. The main attorney was Nancy Lawler, who is a legend in her own right in the family law field in Atlanta. I was very fortunate to be able to work with her. She taught me the foundations of family law. I mean, everything from doing discovery, settlement agreements, the law. I mean, I can recite cases that she told me about. It was just amazing what she knew, and I learned a lot. I also learned, with her at least, more so how to run a business, even though I wasn't really thinking about it at the time, particularly with retainers and, she was not ashamed about it. This was back in 08, 9, 10. I mean, her retainer at the time was $20,000, and that was a lot for family law.
Yeah.
And she was not ashamed. She was worth every penny, like, for sure. And she would be like, all right, I see the first 20. We're going to go through that. Where's the next 20? And so that's something that I've sort of taken. I'm not all about the money, but I'm just saying, we deserve to be compensated for our time.
So that's interesting. So, I mean, a lot of senior attorneys aren't even really aware of the business of law. And you as an associate very early sort of got exposed to that. And part of that, and I've talked to some attorneys that they don't collect money and they end up just working for free, stressing themselves out and making it all bad for everybody. And so part of it was, I guess, getting paid was part of what she taught you. Anything else?
Well, the law, how to do discovery. I mean, everything. We had a quid pro quo because before going to law school, I was an IT guy. I spent 4 years doing IT work for a national home builder. I was an IT consultant. I didn't want to go into the law at all. My father was a lawyer, and so I didn't want to do that. And then I realized that's what I was born to do. So I didn't want to do that, came into the law, so she taught me all that. I will say, I remember, every month when it came time to do the bills, it's like we stopped doing any other work. I mean, there weren't a lot of bills to send out. We had good clients, but we would focus on that. I remember one time we were standing behind the bookkeeper's desk, and we were literally together all writing a letter to one client about her retainer. But that's how much it mattered. And it's a shame because I know some of my colleagues, they don't send their bills out on a regular basis. And so they're behind in the stress and the finances, and it's a shame. It really is, because we work hard, and we shouldn't be working for free, I guess, as you said.
And that's a huge problem. I see a lot of it. And even the folks who get in trouble at the bar financially or whatever, or hit the bottle or whatever, there's a lot of stress. But a lot of it, I don't want to say all of it, but a lot of it is that if they just got paid for what they did and not let these things slip, it would solve so many problems. But for some reason, lawyers are scared to ask for money a lot of times. I don't understand it. But
well, the other thing, I was talking to my wife about this last night, is really in law school, there needs to be a class on how to be a business person, because a lot of us partners, owners of law firms, we are business people too. And, I was fortunate. I was an undergrad business major. I did IT work. So I had a little bit of a foundation, but even then, the fundamentals, I mean, there's so much that goes into running a firm, as you know. I mean, you are CFO, COO, CMO, CTO, everything else, C-suite that you can be, you are. And we really weren't trained. Or when we were associates or even equity partners, we weren't given, we weren't seeing what the Wizard of Oz did behind the curtain. And it's a shame, because a lot of us really need to.
And I'll say, I was a partner at a couple firms before I started mine. And I tell people everything was already done. It was like, it was already there. And I just sort of stepped into this. And if I needed something, it would just magically appear, or somebody else did it. But then when you have to do it yourself and build it from scratch, it's a whole different ballgame. It really is. It's interesting, my dad was an attorney too, and I was like, I am not going to be an attorney. I'm doing my own thing, and here I am. So I was, goofing off and doing odd jobs and stuff. You had a real career. What made you decide to stop? Hey, I'm cutting out IT. You're getting a salary, I'm sure, and you're like, I'm going to cut that off and then go pay to do more school. What led you to that decision?
Well, I think I was just looking at my career trajectory, and then I think I realized at the time too, and I hadn't met my wife yet anyway, or we weren't even dating or anything like that, but I was just like, all right, this is not my future. I need to reassess where I'm going, and the law just seemed the natural option for me, given my father was a lawyer. I like to argue, and it just, well, I wouldn't say argue all the time, but make legal arguments and things like that. So I think it just was a natural. I don't know why I was fighting it as long as I did, but I'm glad I finally succumbed to it and just said, all right, I got to go to law school, and let me just go and do it. IT, it's fun. I know a lot. People ask me all these questions, how to do things, but that's not where I really wanted to be.
It's funny, when I was an undergrad, I tell this story. I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I don't want to be a lawyer. And so I went to the career services, and they have all these assessments and tests and all these things you can take. And then they come back, and they gave me a top 10 list of careers that I should think about. And 5 of them were lawyers. It's like, what the hell?
It's a sign.
Yeah, but I ignored it until later. So anyway, so back to your journey. So you started out with Nancy Lawler, and then you ended up maybe going to a couple firms basically as an attorney. But at some point you decided, hey, I'm going to go out and give it a shot in my own firm. Yeah. So I want to go to that point. So what drove you to do that? I've talked to a lot of people. Sometimes they're forced to do it. Sometimes they always knew they were going to do it. They just need that little push. Sometimes someone convinces them to do it. Yeah. What was the push for you?
So after I left Nancy, I went to another firm, and I was there. I became a partner there. And really it was, I guess you could just say, it was a midlife crisis. I turned 40. My friend, I was at a little my wife put a party together for us, about 6 couples, one other guy there, Hal Lightman, who is in Atlanta with Will Roundtree. they had just left and formed Macy Walensky and formed Roundtree Lightman. I don't think Klein was with them at the time. Anyway, they just formed that firm. And I remember at the dinner, it was just like, all right, I had a moment, and I felt like I felt bad because I felt like I was talking to Hal the entire time about, all right, where am I going? It sort of kicked in. Where do I see myself? What am I doing? Am I going to stay at this firm forever? But really, I wanted to go out and do something on my own. So that kicked it off. I started making some putting out feelers, etc. Was connected with another colleague of mine who I'd known not too well, but I'd known him in the field. I asked him to go to happy hour and just sort of pick his brain. And about an hour and a half in, we're just like, maybe we should look and do something together. And we did. And it wasn't that I was forced to go out in that situation. I was looking at where I was going, and I wanted to make a change. And I was really inspired by my buddy Hal and how they were able to leave their firm of 20-something years and go out and start. And now they're doing great. And I was like, all right, I can do this. But I didn't want to just jump in the deep end. I guess you could say I wanted a soft landing.
And by that, you mean you wanted to maybe have a partner or someone you're doing it with?
Yes, where, like you said, you need something, it happens, or someone brings it to you. That being said, it was just the two of us with the paralegal. So it quickly became, all right, we need something, you and I got to go do it. And we did. And so we did start a firm, built it up a little bit. And, that went a good almost 4 years. And then we parted ways, relatively amicable. And I formed my own firm at that point. So, yeah.
All right, so let's go back. So when you, after talking to Hal, you're like, all right, I'm doing it, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. You explored it, you started thinking about it, get your mind right, get the things, whatever, set up. What was it like when you went to your firm and say, hey, I'm leaving? How did that go? That's, I do a lot of that. I advise a lot of people on that. So sometimes it's relatively smooth and sometimes it's not at all. And you don't have to get into too much details. But I guess, first of all, like emotionally, I imagine leading up to it, you're carrying a monkey on your back and you're probably not sleeping because you're like, I gotta tell them. And then, so tell me about it.
So leading up to it, obviously I was in talks with my now former partner, but we were, what are we doing? Where are we going to go in terms of where the office is, yada, yada. So we'd formalized everything at that point. And then I sort of made a plan. My wife and I both turned 40 around the same time. And she just happened to be in Europe for a meeting. And I was like, well, why don't I go over there, join you? We'll go to Barcelona for a long weekend. And when I get back is when I'll break the news. It was, while I was over there, I didn't want to think about it at all. We enjoyed our time together. We had a great time. And then coming back, the anxiety, the nerves, all right, this is it. I'm not backing out. I'm going forward. I knew sort of how I wanted to go about it when I arrived that day. And I wanted to leave on really good terms because I did respect them. I was there for 7.5 years. And it wasn't anything about them. It was, I wanted to go do something else. So I did the right thing. I went into the partner who even though I was a partner, but the senior partner who I primarily worked with, and we worked great together. And I just said, look, I've just been thinking about this. I was nervous as hell. And I knew this would be a surprise, but I just sort of laid it out flat that I think I want to go try and go out and start something on my own. I know he was at another firm and he did the same thing. Very common in family law, I'd say.
I would say that.
Yeah.
As you guys are coming and going a lot.
We're too incestuous is the problem because people will merge back together. But I went to him first, and then I went around and told the other partners. In fact, one of the other partners was like, well, good for you. And, I know they sent out a very nice email later that day, just sort of like, we wish him the best, but more importantly, he's a great family man, husband, father, yada, yada. And it was fine. And actually, I agreed to, maybe I'm one of the only people who did this, but usually, the 2 weeks. And most people are like, all right, well, thank you, but, we don't need you around that long. Uh-huh. No, they wanted me, and they were like, we don't want to impose. They're like, we know a month is too long, but could you stay around for 3 weeks, please? And, and during those 3 weeks, I even came in on a weekend to prepare for a hearing for a case, mostly because I really liked the client. But I really went above and beyond, and again, I didn't want to burn any bridges. They were very good to me, and I was sort of looking forward to, all right, this is what I want to do. It's not anything because of them. I really enjoyed my time there, but I was ready to leave. But it was one of the most nerve-wracking things. But once I got through that initial one, it was downhill.
And so another issue when people leave, it's what are you going to do with the clients? Now, it sounds like you were a partner. You probably had your own book of clients that no one else worked with, so it probably wasn't a big deal about who's going to get what client. I imagine that was the case, but maybe there were some that you weren't sure where they were going to go. There may have been some that you're like, please, you keep this one.
Yeah, that probably happened, especially more in our area of family law. But for the most part, it was understood who was staying, who would probably come with me. And I know there was only one maybe where the client was like, I was like, you'll stay. He's like, no, I want to go with you. And I mean, for the most part, I worked it out with them. I believe, from what I recall, this is, God, years ago. But, you got to send the letters out to the client and copy everyone and do all this. And so it was more, it wasn't on bad terms, especially since I was staying 3 weeks and handling a hearing while the senior partner actually was gone on a week for vacation. So I was like, let me do the right thing by them. It was okay. And we handled the letters and all that and moving the files over, and they're like, hey, you can take all that artwork in your office that we bought you. I thought that was nice. I still have it up in my office now.
Wow.
So it was good compared to others, most.
Yes.
Maybe.
So another issue that comes up a lot is staff. You get your clients, or they saying they're going, and then staff. Did you take any staff with you? And was
No.
that an issue? Okay.
Did
So
not
it
take
wasn't
any
an
staff,
issue.
yeah.
Okay. So going back, so you went out, you had a partner, and y'all were together for a number of years, and then you eventually went your separate ways. Again, you don't need to get into the details, but as you look back, for those out there that might be thinking about, hey, I want to go start a partnership, any advice on sort of, approach to partnership? So choosing a partner, dividing the responsibilities once you're there, or, just making it work, because it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. And would I go back and change anything? For the most part, no. I honestly wouldn't. I've learned things. It was good to partner with someone who was older, had more experience, had a firm set up. So I was able to come in and sort of soft landing. But also from the get-go, he treated me, even though I wasn't an equity partner, I had access to everything. And we both wanted it to work out in the long run. And so that was a great mentality as to how to approach it. And so I got to see, like I said, behind the curtain for the Wizard of Oz. So I got to see how everything was done. And he was very open about it, to the point of showing me bank accounts, which, I don't know how many equity partners would show a non-equity partner something like that. So I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, it was 4 years, and there's a lot of things. I know a lot of people, when I said who I was partnering with, one person in particular was like, look, when I partnered with so-and-so, we didn't know each other. We didn't really know each other at all. And here we are 20 plus years later, still partners. So some of it's a leap of faith. Some of it maybe do a little due diligence. We did actually do some due diligence, and we went on double date with our spouses, just to make sure everyone got along, which I still do now. I have a new partner, and I made sure we went on double date, because obviously if the spouses don't get along or we don't get along, it's, you're living with this person effectively. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're spending probably more of your waking time with them than you are your actual family, potentially. So, you want to make sure everything works out well. Obviously, it didn't, it didn't work out. And I would say, compared to maybe some of the other breakups I've seen, we were pretty amicable. There were a few pain points. I think at one point, though, we were just in the office and we really were stuck on 3 issues. And I think he said, hey, you want to go sit in the conference room? And we just went in there and, mature gentlemen, and just hammered it out and came up with a resolution. And it was good.
Good.
So, yeah.
Okay, so now we're bringing up to your firm. And so you've been a partner at a firm, you started a firm with a partner, and now you're going out on your own. So what was that like emotionally, starting over, and you're doing it all by yourself? What was going through your mind?
Oh man, I was scared. I think anyone going out on their own, any business person, all right, where am I going to go? How am I going to do this? How am I going to generate business? I mean, by that point, I had a good amount built up, but I was scared. No doubt about it. I think anyone going out and being an entrepreneur and having to take on the responsibility, and when I had a partner, it was like, all right, well, it's the two of us, but when the buck stops with you and everyone's looking at you for the first time and you're running the show, it's scary. But I think you got to, feed off that energy. And a colleague of mine recently, because I expressed some guilt about something, and she very prophetically said, guilt is a wasted emotion. And that was just recent, but I was thinking back to that with fear, because I was in preparation for this, the fear that I had and how I sort of wasted that emotion, but I also used that to fuel me to be like, all right, what do I need to do? All right, now I'm wearing every single hat there is. I got to find new space. I got to make sure my bank accounts are set up. I got to get the website up. I got to get some staffing, payroll, blah, 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 blah. I mean, everything that you need to run a business now fell to me. So I honestly probably did what I thought was the smartest thing. And one of our good friends, Mitesh Patel, told me this was, what is the highest and best use of your time? And for me, that is being a divorce lawyer. That is the highest and best use of my time. Not creating a website, not running payroll, not doing the IT work, although I could do that if I really wanted to because I have an IT degree, and not any of the other stuff where I can outsource it, bookkeeping in particular. So what I did was I went out and I found really good people to handle this, and I outsourced as much as I could. So I got a great bookkeeper, great accountant, love my marketing team, payroll person. In fact, I actually ended up hiring my payroll person to come in-house to be my firm administrator, so I have a new payroll person. But know what you're good at and know what you need help with, and outsource the stuff that you need help with that you can't. There's no way. Like we were talking about, I was trying to create new email signatures for the firm. So I went on Canva and I spent like an hour or two doing it.
Yeah.
No, I should have done from the beginning. What I eventually did was hire someone who's an expert, and I could have, if I would have just worked those 2 hours, I would have far exceeded the cost for these email signatures. And there's no way I was doing them as great as she did. In fact, multiple people have been like, that's a great email signature. I'm like, I know, I'm pretty happy about it. So, but know what your highest and best use is and focus on what you do best. And for most of everyone, I presume listening, it's being a lawyer. Don't do the stuff you don't know. It's okay to get help. I think that applies anywhere in life. So
Great advice. And, I tell everybody, first thing you should do is get an outsourced bookkeeper. First thing.
Hands down. Yeah.
Like, I think everybody tries it for a month and they waste hours on that shit. And they're like, man, this is, even the people that love, the former CPAs that love, bean counting or whatever, even then, just like you said, you're an IT person, you shouldn't be doing that. So you mentioned earlier sort of the fear and, how it drove you. And I agree with that. So, I still experience it. Every time you sort of go up a level, it's new stuff, new level, new double, whatever. But, fear, I think healthy dose of it is good. It motivates you. It drives you to do stuff. If it's too much, then maybe it's bad and you stress yourself out. But, I do think, a healthy dose of it is good for anybody to motivate you. And so I remember in those days when you were going out, you were sort of like, I don't know, man, I don't know, because you weren't used to it.
Yeah.
But, I knew, and I remember telling you, I was like, no, man, you're going to kick ass. I remember telling you. And then, we got hindsight now.
Yes.
We can look back, and I was right.
You were. Very right.
So, so how many folks do you have now? Total, you've got
So
five
lawyers, including me, 4 paralegals, and a firm administrator.
Okay. That's good, man.
10 people,
So what
I
is
think,
that? How
right?
many years has it been?
3.5.
3.5. That's really strong,
Yeah.
healthy growth. And so do you still have fear? You're like, okay, I got it now.
No, because I think it's always good to be on your toes, and don't become complacent. And I'm always looking to, what can we do better? Just for example, this morning I had my primary paralegals in my office, and I'm like, all right, how can we change the document management system or the way we file things? Like, how can we make it easier for us? And then also, and I get what you all need it for, but I also need you to realize what the attorneys need it for. And while it's great, we're tracking when we produce certain things. If I'm going in there, I'm not necessarily looking for that. I just want to find a document. I want to, be able to go in, investment accounts, this account, bam, pull up the statement or something like that as an example. So I'm always looking to innovate and grow. And, I think if you just become stagnant and stay where you are, and that applies to everything with the practice, I think you won't stay ahead. Especially with all this technology, we're constantly hearing about AI. I've been presenting on it. I've been using it, and it's interesting. Am I going to rely on it right now? No, that's for sure. I just used one of I'm not going to say because I don't want to get in trouble. I used one of the major players, AI legal research, and I typed in a question on something about related to fees in a certain type of action. I got a case back. It said, yeah, you can do it under, I click on the link. No, yeah. Wrong. So I'm still old school, but I'm willing to push the boundaries. I use it for other things. And, I've used it for summarizing depositions as a backup, just a quick thing. I mostly use it for, honestly, marketing and social media.
Really good for that. Really good for that.
Phenomenal for that, yes. And it learns you learns your business. It learns who you are. One thing it doesn't, I don't know why, for whatever reason, the senior partner I worked for at that firm, contractions were never his thing. So then it got molded into me. And I don't know why Copilot cannot learn, after how many times am I using this? Stop using contractions, like in my marketing materials. Like, I go in and change it every time, but it should all talk to each other, right? It's all in Word, it's in Copilot, blah, blah, blah. It still does that. But it is very impressive, because it would take me maybe 30 to 45 minutes to come up with a post. You're fly specking, yada, yada. I just write a simple query, give it as much detail as possible, and it spits out a awesome LinkedIn, Facebook, social media, whatever post, and with all the good emojis that I would take forever to find too. Just amazing how it can help you with the daily routine.
I love how, the sort of the blank page where you're like, hard to get started. At least get you past that, and then you can start moving. So technology and some of these things, processes, what other sorts of things have you done over the last 3.5 years to help build and grow your firm?
I invest a lot in the firm, and that means both in the infrastructure, technology, but also my people. All right, because at the end of the day, one of my colleagues is like, well, what does the client get from you? You go to court, they'll see you in court, but a lot of the time they're seeing your product, your work product, your pay, your what you draft. And, that's their really, until you get into court with them, that's all they're seeing of you, other than interacting with you and hearing you and hopefully, listening to you. But for the most part, it's your work product. And so I'm always investing in the attorneys, in the paralegals. For example, a couple of the paralegals, I found this course through a business coaching program for paralegals, and I was like, do y'all have any interest in this? It's not so much the work in terms of family law, it's more of, the law practice aspect of it. It'll help you with certain things on that front. And it was soup to nuts, intake, conflict check issues. So that was the first one they did. They all came out of it rave reviews over it.
So where'd you find this one?
This was from the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. Okay. There's some things that I do with Atticus. I know they have a team leader. I had my firm administrator do that program, and I've seen changes already to how we do the intake process, nice. Things we're asking, things on that line. The AML, that's the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyer one. They've done a couple of them so far. It's more, that one's for paralegals and support staff, but I know the first session of that they just did, and they just started doing it. It's like elite support staff training. They came out with ideas, and they're like, what if we do this instead? I was like, brilliant, do it, roll with it. And I'm like, I'm glad. And I'm like, and they're pumped. They're like, we have some ideas. We just saw this. We want to make some changes. This will make the practice better, the flow better, all that. I'm like, go with it. Go with it. I love it.
That's magic there.
Yeah.
When your team's bringing you ideas.
Yes.
That's the thing. For me, part of it is, clearing your plate or some of your plate of the tasks.
Yes.
And that's good. Delegating tasks, that's always good. But even when you delegate tasks, that doesn't mean you delegate the headspace. And sometimes it adds to your mental load when you have to figure out what to delegate. But when you can take the task and the mental load and put it on somebody else, that's really magic. So that's cool that you're doing that. So I want to talk a little bit about, you don't have to get into details, but the other thing that anybody who's growing a firm experiences is sort of the hiring and firing aspect, because it's rare that I've ever talked to anybody who gets it right their first try. And if it is, it's got to be pure luck in terms of hiring the right person for the right spot. And usually that first hire, you're going to make mistakes. Either you don't know exactly what you need, you hire the wrong person, you don't onboard them correctly, you don't train them enough. A lot of it can fall on you, but you still end up maybe having to let them go or whatever. So, you're up to, about 10 of you now. What's been your experience on just sort of the hiring and firing aspect, and what have you learned over the years?
Yeah, and I'm not going to come in and just say hire slow, fire fast. I think everyone says that too much. And, I think hiring is not the hard part of the job. It's definitely the firing part. Hiring is, I've hired and let people go. I don't like to call it firing, but I've hired people, and I've gone through over the years, the last 3.5 years, a bunch of different people, and bringing them on board, having high hopes, and the thing I'm starting to do now is I do personality testing as well. I do the DISC profile that Atticus puts out there, so it's very helpful in terms of seeing, all right, how does this person need to be communicated to? How do they communicate? And how does the whole team fit in together? So I had the whole team when I started the program, I did my DISC profile at first, and I'm like, wow, this thing hit the nail on the head with me. It was unreal in terms of that. And for those who don't know, there's like 4 areas, DISC. Of course, someone told me if you have an I and an S, hire that person on the spot. Doesn't matter what they're there for. I think it's I and S. It might be I and C or something like that. You'll find a spot for them. Just do it. So we started doing the DISC assessments just to sort of see how what our strengths and weaknesses, how we, interact with each other, things like that. I think that's important. I'm not going to hold my hand, if I know the person and I know what role I need, I'm not going to hang my head in, if they get a bad DISC score, not that there is a bad one, I'm hoping that people can train and learn. And I've seen that over the course of the last 3.5 years. In terms of hiring, I'll bring them in. I want to make sure, a big thing of my firm is culture and making sure that, I'm in person mostly. There's a couple, if someone needs to, I have kids, people on my staff have kids, they have other things. If you need to work from home because you need to handle something, it's cool. Typically my response is, yeah, no problem. Because I know you're going to get the work done anyway. So if you got to take care of something there, do it. I will have to do that. I want you to be able to do that. I'm not going to be that type of boss. So in terms of that, it's the culture. It's making sure that whoever's going to come on board is going to fit in well with everybody else. And that's part of why I do the DISC assessment. But just making sure that they get our vibe, because, with lawyers and, law firms, it's, you got opposing counsel coming at you. You got the judge coming at you. At times you might have your client coming at you and other people coming at you. So, we got to be a tight team, and everyone's got to work together, and, there's no pointing fingers. All right. Own up to it, or don't even own up to it. Just get it done. And if something's wrong, raise the flag, raise the alarm. We got it. 98% of what we do can be fixed. All right. So I'd rather just don't try to cover. Just tell me what's going on. Let's find it. Let's fix it. All right. Because I know it happens. It happens to all of us. When I was a young associate partner, yeah, I made mistakes. We all made mistakes. It's just how you handle it and how you do that. So part of it is the culture, making sure everyone fits in well, is on the hiring side. The letting go side it's definitely been one of my harder. I'm just, given where I fall on the DISC assessment, I am a high I. Everyone is my new best friend. Mm-hmm. So having to let someone go is the hardest thing for me, because as a person, I like them. It's just in terms of where they fit in the firm, it may not be there anymore or some other reason. And that's the worst. And it really is. I've not let anyone go that, since I started the firm, that I've not stressed about it. I've not, internally wrapped the guilt, in that way. I'll say that's not a wasted emotion. I think it's more just shows that I do care. And I want to see everyone who, if they're not going to be with me, I want to see them succeed. And I always say, I'm glowing recommendations. It just didn't work for us.
Mm-hmm. It sucks. I mean, it's no fun letting anybody go. I don't care how much of a hard ass you are. It's not fun. But yeah, it's a bumpy road. And the people out there that think it's just a straight shot up with no issues, I mean, you're adding people and personalities into the mix. And every time you add a new one, it has to reshuffle a little bit. And so it's an art, not a science. Real quick, thanks for listening. If you're getting any value out of this podcast, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. It would really mean a lot to me. Now back to the show. Well, let's move on. So, part of the growth of any firm is adding people, but those people have to have work to do. So on that end, you got to bring the cases in.
Yes.
And so to bring the cases in, you got to do some business development, marketing type stuff. So I'm curious, I'm sure you get a lot of referrals, but other than that, what other sorts of things do you do to market your firm or bring in cases?
I would say, honestly, the bulk of the incoming cases are referrals from other non-family law attorneys, surprisingly family law attorneys, when they're conflicted out and they want to make sure the person gets to someone competent who can handle the case.
And real quick, let me interrupt.
Yeah.
There are different levels of family law attorneys, and my sense is that I know you represent, you got famous people that people have heard of, so you're sort of probably on the upper end, or how would you describe? And maybe, my sense is that if you got famous people, it's a referral. They're not getting you off of ChatGPT or Google.
No, they're not going and divorce lawyer near me or something like that. It is a referral, typically from other, when someone's asking their around or lawyer friends, hey, do you know somebody who does this? And that's the ones that I'm focusing on. Or other professionals, financial people, accountants, any of those types of professionals who I would refer out people to will refer back to me. And I find that to be the highest compliment because, I trust them, they trust me, we'll handle the best is when I can refer someone back to someone who referred it to me for another matter, and we both handle it. The goal is client satisfaction. I think someone told me at one point, it doesn't matter what the verdict is or we don't have verdicts, but what the outcome is the client happy? And that typically to me is my biggest concern. So I think I've built that, that reputation. I hope I typically get a lot of referral former clients, because people will be like, all right, they know they got divorced. Would you go to your attorney again? Yes. And I was talking about this last night with my wife, and she's like, well, and also you get some times where the other side sends you a case, and that to me is one of the biggest compliments. That is,
yeah.
When you get a referral from the opposing party.
Must have kicked their ass.
I'm prepared.
My lawyer was like that.
Yeah, it's nice to get that. In terms of other marketing, I just actually did refresh my website, and I don't know what they're doing, but we're getting a lot of Google search hits in from people. One interesting thing that I think is going to start coming out more is people are like, well, where'd you find us? ChatGPT.
Yeah, I've been hearing that.
Yeah, so I was just like, wow. But it makes sense if you think about it because it's out there on the internet. It's searching everything. And so I guess if my SEO is good, then I think they're calling it GEO, generative engine optimization. But I feel like it feeds in from SEO.
Yeah.
But I have gotten a few lately where it's like, where'd you find this? ChatGPT? I'm like, that's interesting. So I guess, that it comes in there, but that's not my bread and butter. No, it's typically other lawyers, former clients, word of mouth. I mean, I am in a couple organizations that are top lawyers. And so I will get referrals, especially from around the country, from my colleagues in the AML. I will send people out, especially if it's, all right, do you know someone in New York? Do you know someone in Texas, Florida? Oh, yeah. Here, call this person. I'm good friends with them. They'll take care of you. And I get that in return. And that's always nice, too.
And, good point. I mean, try to keep your clients happy, although in divorce, I imagine that's challenging. But also, be active with colleagues, both locally and nationally. I think that's a great point. When you're involved with some of these national organizations, if they ever have anything in Georgia or Atlanta, they're going to think of you. So that's good. So I want to move on again to, we've sort of talked about this a little bit, and I'll just call it mindset.
Yeah.
I'm just call it mindset. We talked a little bit about fear and, some of your approach to culture and training, talked about that. But, looking back over the last 3.5 years, maybe how has your mindset changed, if at all? And, do you think that's an important thing in terms of growing your firm? And I ask because personally, I feel like, you hear the saying, we got you here, we'll get you there. And it's, you sort of grow up to your limits. And then if you don't change, then you're not going to grow anymore. And so I have recently been bumping up on mine. And so I had to step back and sort of think about things, and I think I'm going in the right direction. I think my mindset has shifted. But I'm curious about you and what you've sort of experienced over the last 3.5 years.
I've definitely grown and changed mindset in certain areas and been pushed to experiment, I guess you could say, in some different aspects. And I don't know, I think most lawyers were type A, we're control freaks, right? And don't get me wrong, I try to give my team as much leeway, but I think at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. I want to make sure that the work that's going out, the representation is top notch for these clients. But I've learned there are things that I can delegate. And at first, like for example, I brought in a virtual assistant to help me manage my email because it is just an onslaught. It just never ends. And the organization of it is the pain, and also just sorting and getting copied on emails. And I like to make sure everyone who's on a case is copied, but are there any action items for me on that email? No, it's more for top, awareness, or later on, maybe I might need it, but it's going through the emails and getting them sorted. And I honestly was just like, I'm not doing this. There's no way I'm giving anyone access to my email. And then finally someone pushed me and was like, just give it a try. Just get it in there. I mean, you've got 10, and I'm not that bad compared to I've got some colleagues who have 50,000 plus emails in their inbox.
Holy shit.
Exactly. I had maybe slightly scary. Less than 10,000 when I first brought in somebody, of which 2,000 were unread, which is me leaving them unread. I read them, but I'm going to get back to it. And then, of course, you move on to the next issue. You still solve it, but then you forget to go back, mark it read, and move it out to a folder. So,
man, when I have over 70, I start getting stressed out.
I know, right? Isn't it just like you want to see that? I
can't imagine over 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I was at 10. A lot of them are old, but I knew I needed it, and I was like, all right, well, I'll get to it. I'll do it. And it was, again, the mindset of what's your highest and best use. And I came to that realization, and I was nicely pushed by a business coach to bring someone in, pay them, $50 an hour to go through all the emails, move them around, get them into the folders, clear out your inbox. I don't think I'll ever get down to net zero?
Inbox zero.
It's inbox zero. There's no way, because they just keep coming in, and all your CLEs are at this. I'm like, I'll never get rid of those, even though they're in the other folder. But point is that I was pushed, and the mindset initially was, oh, there's no way I'm going to let anyone in this. Now I'm like, I can't live without that person. We have a system in place. I will look at an email, I'll hit a button, it goes to an archive. They go in the archive, they move it around, and then once a week they'll go through the main inbox. And if it's obviously something that was sent to the client, hey, here's a copy of this motion we filed, or and I'm copied on it. They'll mark it red. They'll move it to the folder, because a lot of it is, here's the service email to the opposing counsel. Here's the email to the client. I don't need to be doing that, but also the fear of the mindset of no one else can do it but me. Well, believe it or not, other people can do it, and you can focus on the things that you do better. Yeah.
To that point, so one of the things that it's been running, it's like a repeat for the last few days. You got to let grow to grow. It's like that's the mantra that I'm playing over and over in my mind. Got to let go to grow. Yeah. Which is what that is. I have not let anybody in my inbox yet.
Well, the other aspect was also the internal financial stuff. I mean, the beauty of having, purely coincidence, my former payroll person, who literally knew everything anyway about the inside, coming in and now sort of liaisoning with the payroll company, but giving her a more new inside look into the finances, which I was always like, there's no way. It's okay. Like, let grow to grow. And that's one of those methods too, where it's like, all right, what are you seeing in there? Work with the bookkeeper, like help me, help us, help the firm, basically.
Yeah.
And then in terms of other mindsets, I would say, one thing I think is always the constant fear is the phone won't ring. And, oh, woe is me, the phone hasn't rung in like 2 weeks. I don't think I'll ever get over that fear, but I've come to the realization, and a very good colleague of mine is like, look, it won't ring for 2 weeks. And then you get 5 calls in one day and you got 5 new cases. And now you're like, oh God, I got 5 new cases. So you just got to learn the ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows, but it comes in.
So I've got advice for you.
Yeah.
When the phone's not ringing, go on vacation. That's when everybody wants to hire you.
Oh,
when you're away.
Yeah. That's smart.
That's when the phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
What the hell? So, okay, I got a couple more questions and we'll wrap up. So I guess first thing, for people out there that are maybe a few years behind you on the journey or maybe thinking about starting a firm, any advice out there for, starting a firm, growing a firm, operating a firm, anywhere you want to go?
So my biggest piece of advice for anyone who's looking to make a move or doing what I did when I hit my midlife crisis of 40 and was like, all right, I'm ready to move on, I would say find a mentor. Find someone who is gone out there, who's done it, and is willing to give you some advice, even if just meet with you for an hour. I'm always talking to younger lawyers who are, hesitant, wanting to make a move. I'm happy to give my time to them because I did it and I want to see them succeed. And so I would say do that. The other thing is also, like I said earlier, find your highest and best use of your time. So if you're not a bookkeeper and math scares you because you're a lawyer, don't be the bookkeeper. Hire a bookkeeper, outsource it. They're probably going to charge you less than your hourly, substantially less than your hourly rate, and do a 10 times better job than you would ever do doing your own books. It is not your highest and best use of your time. But going back to that first point, I would say if anyone, I know because I'm on the state bar committee for this, I think for small firms or something, there are resources out there. So don't be afraid to ask. You're not the first person to go through this. You don't have to go it alone. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The state bar of Georgia in particular and other state bars, I'm sure, have materials on how to get things going. Because there's a lot. I mean, malpractice, your bank account, your everything there is. Believe it or not, someone has been there and someone has created a guide, and it just gives you that, okay, I can do this. I got it. I see the checklist. I know what I need to do. I know need to get on it, and talk to somebody. I love talking to people who are thinking of going out on their own or making a move. I'm happy to do it, and I always tell them this is confidential. This stays in a vault. I'm not going to go and tell anybody that you're thinking of doing this. I want to see you succeed because I'm sure some people wanted to see me succeed, and they still do. And, if I help them, then, hey, you never know. Maybe they'll refer a case to me in the future too. But I do want to see most of the people that come to me, I'd say all the people really, I want to see them succeed, and I'm going to help them. And I've been there, trials, tribulations. I know what works, what doesn't. Well, I know what works currently, I feel like, and I want to help them and be like, oh, I wouldn't do this, but I would do that. And let me tell you why, because here's my experience. So find a mentor is what I would say.
Great advice for sure. All right, last question. You've had a good little run here. As you look to the future, what's next? What's your vision? You've already had your midlife crisis, so that's out of the way. So what's your vision for your firm, for your life, for your career, whatever?
In terms of the firm, I want to continue to grow. I added a partner earlier this year. I'd like to continue to expand and grow. We're starting to run into a little space constraint potentially, so I have to knock down a few walls and a little bit of space left on the floor, but I'm not going to let that box me in any way. No pun intended, maybe. I'll find a way to make it work. So I would like to continue to grow the firm, be one of the preeminent family law firms in Atlanta, Georgia, and continue to grow there. Otherwise, in terms of, I'm hitting a lot of the peaks of my career. Like I'm currently the chair of the Atlanta Bar Family Law section. I'm on the executive board of the Family Law section for the State Bar of Georgia. I'm very involved in the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. I want to continue to stay involved. Past summer, I was a mentor at the Associate Institute, so I got to teach to younger lawyers. And I'm on panels. I'm asked to speak. I love sharing what I've done, and in a variety of facets, not just, all right, here's legal things. No, here's practice things. Here's wellness tips, because this is not an easy practice. And so I would like to take some more vacations. Maybe I'll get a ton of new clients when I go away on vacation, right? And also, I would say I'm actually lucky in that I'm there a lot for my kids and my family, and I prioritize them above most everything else. Like on weekends, I'm at various sporting events for my kids. My little one plays travel baseball. We're always on the road for that. That's really what I want to make sure I'm in their lives while they're still young, and also make sure I have enough to pay for college.
You work hard, man.
It's coming. It's coming faster than I know it. But and I also want to make sure I take care of my people who are working for me. A lot of what I do is making sure that they're fine too, and we're all good. And a rising tide raises all ships, or something like that. I always make these analogies to clients, and I've lately been screwing them up, but I think that's the one. So if we're all doing well, the firm's doing well, we're all going to do well. So.
Well, Kevin, I'll tell you, it's been fun to watch sort of your evolution over the last 4 years or so. It's really been fun to watch, and congrats on all the success you've had. But thanks for joining me today. Thanks for coming on. So
thanks for
if
having
there's
me.
Anybody out there that, wants to get in touch with you, you can look into the camera if you like. What's the best way for somebody to find you?
If you're looking for me, familylawga.com is the website. You can go on there and reach out to us, contact at familylawga.com, and I get those emails and I will respond. And as I said, if you're a young attorney and you're looking for some advice, I'm happy to meet. I meet with young people all the time. I want to see everyone succeed. They were in my shoes. I want to help the next generation.
Awesome. Again, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Founding Partner Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn and check out the show notes with links to resources mentioned throughout our discussion by visiting www.lawfirmgc.com. We'll see you next time for more origin stories and insights from successful law firm founders.